I'm Jeremy, and this is Grit City Punk.
I'm Jeremy, and this is Grit City Punk.
My name is Jeremy, and this is Grit City Punk.
I'm Jeremy, and this is Grit City Punk.
Jiggle Down Productions.
My name is Mitch, and I'm a father. I am the guitar player and the singer for the band Liability. And my son is the bass player in our band, and a lifelong friend of mine basically is our drummer. So it's kind of a family affair all around.
That is a family affair. That's really awesome. So,
Thank you.
How long have you been playing music? Is this your first band? You've been in other bands before?
I've been in many bands, some for short periods of time, some for longer. This is not my first band. This is probably my first band really in the genre of like punk or punk crossover. I think it's the first time. Let's see, I've been playing probably. I started when I was about 10 or 11. So I've been playing about 30 years, 31, 2 years. But I would say as far as bands, I've had probably more of a singer-songwriter career, quotations, with other members at different times doing different projects. But this is really the most collaborative in terms of everyone contributing to the music, everyone making decisions together, trying to just be unanimous on everything we do. So this is really the first project where I feel like that's been a success, and we've been really consistent in that environment of like giving each other space to just say everything we want to say, and when we all agree, then that's something that we go do. So that's kind of the difference between this group and every other group I've been in. Every other group I've been in, the dynamics have been a little bit more like push pull, oh, this song I really like this, or like, hey, for this part can you just do that? And in this group we do basically the opposite. We try to let all of our influences really hang out, and we just laugh about the things that sound like our influences, sound like our heroes, and right. We just we just kind of we have fun with it. We don't take it overly serious. At least at this point. I mean, maybe in the beginning we kind of started to. I know I personally did. I had some kind of vision and some kind of drive, and in a lot of my other projects, because I'm kind of primarily a songwriter, my other projects kind of revolved around that, around me writing songs, and then everybody else was like, well, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, don't ask me, bring your thing to the table. So this project really lets all of that shine. I get to write and I get to do everything that I want, but then I bring it to them and it gets all cut up and we do whatever, and it's way better than it could ever be, just the song that I wrote. So that's this group has been awesome for that.
Yeah, I totally get that. I was in a band where I wrote everything and wanted other people to contribute, but it was just like, well, you just tell me what to do. It kind of takes all the fun and collaboration out of it, and you don't end up with the best product most of the time.
I agree. Yeah.
So you said your son is 15?
Yeah, my son is 15. He's been in the band. So we started this band about 2 years ago, and he's been in the band and studying his instrument and playing his instrument pretty much the entire time. So we dragged him into the garage and did things at 13.
Right.
But which is not true. I'm laughing about it because he was very, very interested in playing guitar and doing all that. So he started it, but now that once we got going, it was very apparent that like it would be super cool and easy to just since we're already together, let's just play music together.
Yeah. So how does that dynamic work between a child parent relationship versus two bandmates in a band, like in a working band, playing shows, writing songs, recording? How do those two dynamics, I guess, I mean, are they at odds with each other, or does that make one or the other easier?
Ooh, solid question, man. That's really good. Without getting into a compare contrast situation, because I feel like every dynamic is different. Every band dynamic is different. Every family dynamic is different. So what we've done is I've basically blended the two. So when it comes to parenting, I'm much more of a consultant. I present the maybe the devil's advocate, or I present the options the way that I see them as a father to my son when he has any kind of issue, just like any father would, right? But I don't mandate or force any direction, or I don't say, well, if you go that way, it's bad. I say, if you go that way, these are the consequences that I've seen. You might want to take heed, or something like that. But also, I support you if you want to go that way. Like, we can try it, So the band really functions the same way. I have tried to include him from the very beginning, even when he was really shy about making decisions, because he was very young, very early playing. Didn't have confidence to bring a riff to the table and say, hey guys, this is how I want it to sound and stuff. He was mostly playing off of what we're playing. And basically what ended up happening is I couldn't separate the two. I'm with my son and I'm playing music. So I had to have it all there at once. I had to really be available for all of his questions as a father, while walking into the grimy club that smells like piss, and I just love it, because honestly, the punk community is exactly that. It's a community. And that was the biggest thing that I wanted to show him when it came to both being a bandmate and being a father. Bringing him around a community widens his available options, and his resources as a young person. Bringing him around other young people, bringing him around other adults my age that are running sound and running clubs and, taking door money and, doing all kinds of things like that. And this mutual respect that goes on in that community is something that I really have not seen in any other community. Personally, I've been in other communities, but so basically, to answer your question, I try to be both a bandmate and a father at all times, and I don't think the band is more important than him, and I don't think that us putting out a record or doing any checking any box as a band is really more important than the personal relationship that we all have with each other as family members. And when one of us is down, we're all down. Oh, you can't make it because of this. All right, then we can't make it as a band. We're not going to put pressure on you, because we can make it and you can't, type of a thing. Yeah. I think I keep that both consistent in the band and as a father, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. It would probably be a lot harder and less efficient if you were try to separate the two more.
Yeah, and I think maybe he would feel less respected, have less of a part in it because he's in his dad's band, and right. I don't want to be that. I'm just in the band with him, There's no hierarchy, So yeah. As a father, that's how I feel too. I might have more experience, but there's not a hierarchy. I'm not just going to tell you what to do, I'm a resource for him as a father. So
yeah, and you could always, the amazing thing about life is that you can always learn from your own kids or people younger than you, even when you think that you are the more experienced.
Man, so well said. Honestly, he has led the way many, many times, including being in the studio and keeping his cool and sitting down on the couch and fixing his parts faster than everybody else.
Mhm.
And, just he's also a trained musician. Like, he's been in jazz band, and he is currently in jazz band. And, he's a band nerd and all that comes with it. And he's so reasonable, and he's so calm, and I am not those things. I'm like all the time, I'm just like the wild person. And so he chills me out, and he when we hang out, and he does get plenty of opportunity to lead,
Mhm.
and it's great. And when he does it, I follow. Like, when he's got it right, I follow.
So that's something that I ask pretty much everybody that I talk to, if they were in band, if they're a band nerd or studied any kind of music in school. So your son is in band and jazz band in high school, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, so and that's been since middle school, I assume.
Yeah. Yep,
Okay,
that's correct. He's been on it for years now.
How involved are you in that process?
Very. I mean, I have some training. I was in choir in high school, but and that changed my life, dude. So when I heard that he was going to do band, I was really up for it. I wanted to make sure he got all of the rides or all of the side money that it takes, or I go to all the jazz nights. I go to everything that I can get my hands on, even if it's late notice and I know it's happening and I'm out of work a little early. I'll go there if I think I can make it, no matter what, because I'm so beside myself, stoked with how he plays and how he gets along with his bandmates, and I'm just on the outside basically in those events. I mean, he won't even come up to me sometimes because he's just hanging with his homies, and I love it. I super love it. I support it 100% as much as I can.
Yeah. I proud dad of two band geeks myself.
Yes.
Both of them were regular band, jazz band. They both played trumpet. In jazz band, my oldest son also played guitar. My younger son played drums for 1 year in jazz band, and I mean, I went way over the top.
Yes.
From the very beginning, it was like every single event, every single field trip, every single rehearsal, I was there. I volunteered for everything. By the time we got to high school, I mean, I'd gone to every parade as a volunteer, as chaperone. And by the time we got to high school, there was a booster club, and I joined it. And by the second year, that was the first COVID year. And so everything just kind of fell apart. And the next year, picking up the pieces, I became president of that booster club. And then, and so it was way more. I bit off way more than I could chew, of course. But so
it's easy to do.
It's very easy to do. So I was, right there in the thick of it all, seeing, everything happen, being involved with all the events and concerts and parades and whatnot. But just like you said, I mean, my kids most of the time wouldn't even acknowledge me that I was there. I mean, they
knew.
Of course they knew, and they're grateful that I was there and they appreciated it. But they were in their own space, and I respect that, and I try to let them have that space, but at the same time showing that I'm there. And I think that makes a world of difference too, because you see, when you go to concerts, some kids, their parents aren't there, or some parents, I've seen it, and this just blows me away. They drop their kid off at a concert and then they leave. And it's just like, how can you do that? Like, I would take days off from work,
how.
I
know. Same. Yeah. That's where I'm at. And, it's interesting because I have another son who's not in music, and I'm trying to do that same thing for him. I want to support his sports. I want to support the things that he's into. And I am willing to take that time off or away or whatever to do those things. And he's just now getting to, he's 13. So he's just now getting to the age where that stuff's going to get a little more serious, and I am going to have to take the time and money away. But that's really cool to hear about your experience too, because what you said right there, that you're facilitating that space that's their own, that's with their own group and their own, that community of people who are their own age, and they're all involved in doing this thing. And as a parent, of course you want to be close to that, but that's the perfect viewpoint, is like you're there, you're supporting, but you're hanging back, letting them build their own thing.
Yeah. And now in the punk scene, my oldest son, he's a photographer, and he's just kind of started that over the last 6 months or so. And me and him have been going to shows together for about a year and a half now. And he just started taking pictures, and a lot of times he'll go off on his own. A lot of times we go together, and I just let him do his thing. I'm there to watch the show and support those kids or those, adults, whatever the case may be. And I'm there as if he needs me, but it's he's creating his space and his environment,
interaction,
correct. Yeah. And I'm there to help him any way I can, if he wants that help. And if he doesn't, then I'm fine to just, stand there. I'm watching the show, or maybe I'm not even there, but when the time comes he needs to go to the bathroom, I'm going to hold his camera for him.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll watch your stuff. It's really funny you brought that up, because if you didn't bring that up, I was going to bring it up. My son has the same exact trajectory. Like he started a photography class, and his teacher's letting him use the lenses, and he's bringing them to shows. And he started an Instagram, and now he's got, photo taking going on, photography going on at the same time. And we've done some shows where, it was like a madhouse. It was like play, but then also he wants to grab his camera equipment and like shoot the other bands. And, it's so fun.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you know about that too. So that's really cool.
Yeah, so it's really fun watching them kind of grow in their own field of interest and learn things from you, but also mostly from other people.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, as much as we're around, they're learning from that environment faster and more profoundly than they're learning directly from us, I feel like. Yeah,
and I think it's just making that foundation early on to show them that, to help guide them on their path to finding things on their own, but knowing that you're going to be there no matter what, I think allows them to blossom in whatever they want to do, because they know they have that safety net, that home that they can rely on.
That's it right there, man. You nailed it. And that can't be only a father thing too, like that could even be described as being present in the band sense of like, I don't know about this song or this riff or this whatever. It's really different. I don't know what the guys are going to think, we created that same space within our bands to be like, oh, you got a jazz riff you want to bring? Let's do it, dude. What does death metal drumming over that sound like? Let's get it,
Right.
And so, yeah, that confidence of just hanging back and let them do their own thing, or the confidence that they have that comes from that, that support system that you just touched on is, there's no price that you can put on that, dude. That's just like, that's what being a parent is. I think, if you had to define it in one phrase, it would be like endless support, endless space to grow and use me as a resource. And yeah, I love it.
It's really amazing when you're dealing with kids, specifically like teenagers. If you just go into it, whether they're your kid or somebody else's kid or your kid's friend, when you go into the conversation or the relationship, whatever, going into it, looking at them as a potential equal, looking at them as, oh, this isn't just some kid who doesn't know anything. This is a person. This is a person who has their own experiences. They might not have as much experience as you, but that doesn't make it any less valid. So approaching it as, hey, this is just another person in the world that I'm having an interaction with. What can they learn from me? What can I learn from them? Most importantly,
100%.
and
100%.
It's amazing how much wisdom and how much creativity comes out of kids and teenagers when you treat them like that, rather than just always looking down on them like they're kids.
Yeah, that is such a valid point, because I do see, just in observation of society and around me and in families around me, that there sometimes exists a disconnect where the parents almost act like there's a parent world and a child world.
Mm-hmm.
And even if the child is, a teenager, which is arguably really not in the child world anymore, there's
Right.
there's a death of innocence there, right? There's a real change, a real deep down change that goes on during that time. And if we as parents act like they are beings, whole individuals, just as you said, and they feel respected, man, your job's almost half done. I mean, they're going to bring their different opinions and their different observations to you, because you are a trusted source. They can talk to you about things. And then in turn, me as a parent, I get to see where they're coming from, because I have all this weight of experience in my life, and I made all these decisions, and I went on, all of these different forks. And now, no matter what, I have this innate position that I built myself, and sometimes it's hard to see around that. And when you have the wisdom, like you said correctly, of someone coming at it fresh, with fresh eyes, with fresh ideas, and going ahead and communicating with the older generation who are more set in their ways, if you will, and have more experience. Oh man, if I'm open to learning from what he says, it makes me better. I don't know how many times we've had literal band interactions where whatever he said or what he did made me realize that I was trying too hard or pushing too much or looking at the wrong thing to make it better or whatever. And it's just simply having him there and doing better as an example, or maybe he does say something to me or ask me something or whatever. That influence on me has been huge. I think that's really important for parents, not only as bandmates, not only as parents of people, kids in band or kids in bands out in the community, like in the punk community, but fathers in general. Just stop and listen to your kid. Just what are they saying? Why did they say it? Why do they think that way? Learn something from that, because there is plenty to learn from fresh eyes and a fresh take on this world. And they have it, and like it or not, we don't. We have experience.
Absolutely. For better or worse, we have the experience.
Bingo.
Yeah. And that's really unique, I think, to specifically the Tacoma and Seattle area punk community, where I've never experienced it any other time in my life. And maybe it's just because of where I'm at now in my life, or maybe it's a totally objective thing. But like when I was a kid, that kind of interaction with others didn't really exist. Like,
Correct.
There was adults and there was kids. There was your parents and they're your parents. They're not your friend. You're not going to go hang out with your parents. You're not going to, there wasn't any of this. And that's the beautiful thing about music, and specifically like in DIY spaces, because it brings people not only from all walks of life, but also from all age groups and demographics. And so you get people, middle-aged guys playing in a punk band to teenagers playing in a punk band, and they're interacting.
Yeah.
Hopefully as equals, as contemporaries.
They do, man. I've been in all the green rooms in our shows, or out behind the, venue or whatever. Everybody is talking about instruments. They're talking about tours. They're talking about, what do they think about this or that band, or like, I can't wait to see you guys play. Or I have experienced that only in this time frame as well. I agree with you. When I was young, it wasn't there. Just exactly like you stated it. I haven't seen it in any other real group, and I didn't even know it was here. And now that we're part of it, I feel like we're an integral part of it. Like, we have to keep it going. Like, it's local, but there's got to be other local scenes that function this way too. There's got to be other, parents and kids getting along, doing stuff, middle-aged and teenager, all on the same bill, all at the same club at the same time, supporting each other, like joking, playing each other's instruments, talking about doing certain things. Let's get together and do it again. Like, hey, can you take pictures of my band? It's insane. Like, we have had like no negative interactions, almost 100%. We've been playing shows for 2 years, and I mean, like, I don't know what we've averaged, maybe 2 shows a month or something for 2 years. Quite a bit. Like, we've been playing out quite a bit, and in all of that time, there has been almost no drama, almost zero, 100% zero examples of like parents talking down to teenagers, or parents acting like, or older generation acting like the youngers are they don't know anything because they're young. You know what? Cool. It goes the other way too, because the kids are not scared. They walk right up to the old dudes and like, that's a cool guitar. Whatever.
Exactly.
Rad. And for the kids to have that kind of confidence, that's great. I mean, it's two-way street, So the older generation in the local punk scene is doing great, and so are the kids.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's going to about wrap it up here. As far as your band liability, looking past Father's Day, what's coming up for you guys? I know you've got a couple singles out now. You've had a few other recordings that I've heard and enjoyed. You got plans for EP, album? Yeah,
so the 9 songs that I gave you in Super Secret Squirrel that I guess we're spilling now because those are all part of an album, and we're actually the newest news is that we've all sort of thrown out the idea that we cut the album soon and with fewer songs, and then get right on to releasing some more songs, maybe in a live EP in studio, or maybe go back to the studio, or maybe do it like live at Real Art or something, get somebody to kind of take it off the board and mix that, So we're just throwing around that idea, but we should have an album soon either way. And then, just a couple more shows. We've got shows coming up in June and July and August. So we're going to play at Real Art. We're going to play at Lucky Liquor. We're going to play at the Central in August in downtown Seattle. All places we played before, and all places that we love. And honestly, I mean, my son's got his own band going too, with like the jazz kids outside of jazz bands. So I don't see anything slowing down. I think we're just going to keep cranking out tunes, keep playing shows. We want to try and get a tour going. I don't care if we just, sign some credit card thing and rent a van and just make it happen. Like, I'm dying to get this kid on his first tour, before he's out of high school, and just still have some fun, make some music, Hell
yeah. All right, Mitch. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And
oh man, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you very much for asking, and it's nice to hear your fatherly stories too. Hey, it's nice people can relate.
Yeah, it's good to hear yours. Catch you at a show sometime.
Okay, man. Sure. Sounds good.
I am Brian Templeton, also known as Gray Man, because it's less syllables. I am a local bass player to Tacoma. I have been here in the Tacoma scene since 2020. I had a very busy musical life prior to moving to back to Tacoma, as this is actually my home. I have been a working bass player professionally for 40 years. and have managed to get 14 TV and film credits, and I'm currently working on my 28th and 29th album.
Wow. So you are accomplished working musician. I mean, you have done several recording sessions, obviously, 28th and 29th albums. So have you just strictly been like a session man, or do you have like steady gigs, bands that you work with all the time?
I am both. I currently I'm the bassist for Sunrust, a gothic folk act out of Tacoma. And I'm also part of Ghost in Glass, another Tacoma pop band. I sub for my friend's Lung Duster on the occasion that Paul can't make it. And I do, a freelance studio work. I've been doing that for years. I first started doing studio work back in the early 80s. I worked at the Plant Recording Studios in Sausalito, California, and had the opportunity to work both as an engineer and as an artist with a gentleman named Jim Gaines, who unfortunately passed last year. And he taught me, in the 2 weeks' time that he was doing prep on my first professional album, taught me how to be a professional studio bass player.
Okay.
And I just have continued. I pretty much play any style. The only thing I would have to probably stop and spend some time with would be a theater pit, because that's reading. I read like a monster in college. I got out of college and found out my ear was faster. So my eye is slower. So, theater pit would be something I would have to, take a little time with. But everything else, I pretty much just jump right into.
Cool. And you are also a father.
Yes.
Which is why you're here, because you're a father. And it's a Father's Day special. So how many kids do you have, and how old are they?
I have 2 children. My son is 21, and my daughter, Anya, who you know, is just 18. And as you know, she is very busy working in the Tacoma music scene as well, which is amazing. She was born in Buffalo, and had we stayed there, she would not be doing what she's doing now. There are absolutely no opportunities for young bands in the Buffalo area. There are no underage clubs. No one takes a chance on it. The best you can hope for is a party that doesn't get busted. Yeah. Whereas here, she is a full-on professional and gigging regularly, and it's great. The Tacoma music scene, it just can't be beat.
Yeah. I don't have any personal experience of a music scene outside of Tacoma, but from what I've seen, and then just also with my experience as a kid in Tacoma many, many moons ago, this is a very, very unique scene that we have.
Yep, very much. And I'm just glad to be a part of it. Because, yes, this is my home, but I left on a 50-year walkabout in 1970 and came back in 20. I, of course, had been home here and now and then, but not here being part of the scene. So I'm lucky that at this point in my life that I'm being accepted into the scene. I feel very, gracious and lucky about that.
Yeah, for real. Age gap isn't really a thing in this scene, where like you can get bands of older people playing alongside bands of teenagers, or sometimes there's bands that are mixed ages. And from my experience, it's all just really, on the same playing field. Everybody, for the most part, it's a camaraderie. Nobody thinks like, oh, well, you're just a kid, you're not where I'm at, or whatever.
Yeah. The scene is very enveloping. Everybody wraps their arms around, and back, bouncing back to the kids, my son, he also plays, but he is in pursuit of movie directing.
Oh, cool.
And so he is in his learning. He's studying all the different directors and different films, and even today was listening to the soundtrack to Mandy, of all things, studying how it's being used. And then my wife was a critically acclaimed stage actor, both in San Francisco and in Buffalo, specializing in Shakespeare and Irish classical theater. By the time we got here, the theater maybe wasn't starting over in the theater in a new town at that point in life was not thing to, she really wanted to do.
Right.
So she transitioned to stand up.
Okay.
And has been embraced by, again, the Tacoma comedy scene.
Yeah.
And
that's really
as well, so she does back booth bullies every Monday night down at the downtown club. And as it has worked out, this is my fourth project. I play bass in between the comedians. I play bass lines,
Oh, wow.
which is really interesting because of it being YouTube. I cannot play anything known. Or the video can potentially be demonetized. So everything that I play between is just stream of consciousness, extemporaneous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it does sound like a lot of fun. How do you balance? Because I was just going to say, because I mean, I'm a musician. My kids are both musicians, but like none of us are like actually doing anything with it. We're just, hobby musicians. None of us are in bands or, working in the scene really. So how do you balance, number one, your own career and your own, tours if you do it, or recording sessions or whatever gigs, versus trying to parent? Because even just, working a 9 to 5 and trying to parent is an extreme juggling act. So you add a whole nother thing to that. I can't even imagine.
It breaks down like this: 6:05 to 6 p.m. is work and work transit.
Mm-hmm.
6 p.m. onward is either music or family. And then family can also mean taking my kids, where they need to be to rehearsal, or if I feel like there's a lot going on and I need to make sure that I have the right amount of prep time for myself, then I will actually put that on the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I will actually schedule my rehearsal time and say, Dad's rehearsal time, so that everybody can see it and, work around it if need be.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just about balance. And we're also very lucky because we homeschooled. So our children were able to find themselves without the benefit of bullying and all that other kind of stuff that goes on in public school that is not necessarily helpful to growth. So we didn't really have as much personality clashes or issues with our children that I think other people might have. And I think that public school has something to do with that. Homeschooling is not for everyone. In our case, my wife, Beth, has a master's in education.
Okay, that helps.
So, yes. So, and we got them through to the point where my son graduated Running Start 2 years ago, and Anya is graduating Running Start on Tuesday. Actually, she walks. So, it's planning, scheduling, and trying to stick to it, but also allowing play and leeway, because life is not A and B and C.
Right.
So it's a challenge, but it's a worthwhile challenge.
Yeah, for sure. So then throw in the mix Anya's schedule with not only her schooling obligations, but then she also has a band who maybe not so well, I guess throughout several bands she's been playing pretty regularly. And last year alone, or maybe it was earlier this year, it seemed like Kapala was playing at least once every single week.
Right. Yeah. Well, to her credit, Anya just relegated herself and set up her very own strict sleep and study regimen, and stuck to it. I like it. And if we're out, she's like, we got to get back. I got to, this was not what one would expect from someone her age normally. And so actually, and she had school 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And actually school's done now. Yeah. So she just has her boards. But to your question, again, it comes down to scheduling. Everything's got to go on that calendar as soon as you know about it. Bottom line.
Yeah.
We live by that calendar.
Yeah. We have a calendar. We try to live by it. It's it's a noble endeavor for sure. As evidenced by our mine and yours recording conflict and schedule this weekend. But yeah, life throws curveballs at you.
Yeah, no, it's just fine. This is all good.
Yeah. I don't know if you have any self-identity or experience like specifically like in a punk scene.
Not here, but I played. We only had 3 shows, but they were 3 off the hook amazing shows in San Francisco with a band that some of us just threw together called the Heavy Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
And we played punk and metal versions of all just Beatles songs. That's all we did. Like drop D stuff and then speed stuff. And, you know, it was crazy. I mean, we just did it as a joke, but it was one of those things that like by the 3rd gig, like people couldn't get into the club. Mm-hmm. And we're looking at each other like, this is just a joke. What the heck? We're just literally just doing this for fun. And, you know, and so if you mention the Heavy Beatles in San Francisco, someone might remember it nowadays.
Okay.
You know?
That sounds fun. So, I mean, I kind of ask that because, I mean, obviously the name of the show is Grit City Punk. Yeah. The point of the show is to talk to musicians or talk to just anybody that's in the scene, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And find out what the word punk as a concept, not just a music genre, but as a concept means to them, like in terms of like morality, community, political ideals, just, you know, any and everything. And to just kind of embrace that and show how it can be so many different things to so many people, but it all comes together kind of in this DIY music scene of basically of misfits and all looking out for each other. I mean, I definitely see that in your daughter. She definitely displays that. It's very prevalent in the whole scene. So I was just kind of trying to get at, does that come from you and your wife, or like in part or in whole?
Some is her. Mm-hmm. Is Anya. I don't have as much experience in the punk scene up here, but I did in San Francisco. Again, with the Heavy Beatles for those couple of shows, but also I was a sub for some friends of mine called Wire Graffiti, and they were punk, but also like they used a lot of like extended chords and things that you don't normally hear in punk that gave it a lot more atmosphere. And so I spent time in that scene, and I got to think that the two scenes are very similar. I feel that the people here and there are very similar. People are people. Right. And the scene there it's a family scene, especially in Oakland. Mm-hmm. The punk scene in Oakland is very much a family scene.
Historically so,
there are people on different ends of the spectrum within the punk community that don't always get along in Oakland. I'm sure that probably the same here. I think sometimes people say things they regret saying, and then that follows them for a long time. And then there's other people who are just not nice people.
Right.
But so the ethos for me, punk, the easiest way would be just an explosion equal in all directions simultaneously. And you know, it's anger, it's focus, it's defocus. Yeah, I mean, it's all of these things all at once. And right now, we should start seeing a lot of really, really excellent art coming out, because whenever the Republicans are in power, and we certainly haven't seen what's going on right now go on.
Right.
I think that we're going to start seeing that the punk ethos becomes very prominent.
Yeah.
And a focus point for people who see the societal change that needs to happen and to help bring that about.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that literally all aspects of the punk community feed right into that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a marriage of the music, the anger and the art and the politics, all pointing towards justice,
Right.
equality.
Right.
You know,
hmm
bringing up those that have been pushed down, amplifying voices that aren't otherwise being heard.
Highlighting people who do things like insider trading when they're, what, Speaker of the House. I
Yeah,
don't
right.
know. Unbelievable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and so certainly like putting a spotlight on that, or just being brave enough to challenge that, is very punk.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And
Yeah.
I'm watching what's going on in LA, and
Hmm.
people are not pleased.
No, no,
Uh,
that's some crazy shit right now.
the thing is that in the end, there's more of us than there is of them.
Yeah.
And when we are all out in the streets in mass, which has not, it's coming to that point, but there will come a time when the powers that be are like, okay, maybe not this time.
Let's just hope that happens sooner than later before things get too much worse for a lot of people.
Yeah. And the other thing about punk is that it crosses every language barrier.
Hmm.
There are punk bands in every continent and probably almost every country in
Yeah.
one form or another.
Yeah.
I mean, Pussy Riot, yeah, they're not really a band per se in the sense that we're used to seeing a band,
Right.
but they are politically active and they are a thorn in Putin's side.
And yeah, and you mentioned it crossing all continents. I mean, there's a lot less language barrier in punk than there is in virtually any other music genre or community or
Sure.
political movement. There's bands that I listen to that are German or Japanese or
Yeah,
whatever.
you don't know
I
the
don't
words,
but you
know what
feel
you understand
the point.
that emotion coming through on the voice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's testament. I mean, you look anytime, somebody like NoFX or, Bad Religion goes to South America or, anywhere in Europe where, English may not be the prominent language, and kids just eat it up.
Yeah. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be.
Did your kids start playing music because they see you playing music, or did you encourage them to, or was it just, I mean, how did that work?
I never forced it on them, and I never had the expectation.
Mhm.
That is the one thing about being a parent that I put in the forefront, was not putting my expectations on them other than staying healthy and moving forward in life. Okay. And in fact, I have never actually, because both Anya and I play bass,
Mhm.
I have never given her a bass lesson other than her being in the room when I'm practicing through an amp.
Mhm.
So, or live in the room as opposed to on cans, which I do most of my rehearsal on cans. But she a lot of times would come and sit in the room. So in that aspect was soaking it up. But we've paid for lessons. I do not teach because I'm self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
And my fear is that I probably have bad habits that I don't know about, that I don't need to be passing on to other people.
Yeah, I get that.
But I've also had nobody go, "Oh, that's horrible. Why do you?" But again, it's so. And with my son, he just, because my wife she sings, and she plays guitar and uke, and we've just always been a performing family. So I think in that respect, I guess when you look and see what your parents do,
Mm-hmm.
we never put any expectation on them for theater or music or anything. Um, but I think that they see how much fun both my wife and I have with our art. And I think that that's probably a serious driving factor.
Yeah.
But no, they did it on their own, quite frankly. They each chose, my son, he takes lessons and, rehearses and sings from, in his room. He, as I said, is more interested in film, but he still stays musical. That's also a part of his life as well. He that he maintains that. And, who knows? Maybe he's going to end up writing music for one of his pieces.
Yeah.
That he shoots.
Yeah. Hell yeah. That'd be cool.
Yep.
So that's funny that you say that you never taught Anya bass. I've been playing guitar since I was like 13, 14, maybe. Some lessons. And then from there, just, kind of taught myself. My oldest son wanted to play guitar. He was very young. I forget. I think he might have been like 9, maybe. I mean, small enough to where he couldn't hold like a real guitar. So we got him a first act guitar, took him down to Ted Brown, got some lessons, didn't really soak in. It was just, he wasn't into it. So like, okay, whatever. No big deal. Fast forward a few years, 5th grade, he's given the opportunity to join band. And my wife and I, we wanted them to. We didn't push him, but we were like, hey, that'd be really cool. You should think about it. And so he did, and he picked up the trumpet. And almost about the same time, maybe like the next year, he started getting back into the guitar and getting really serious with it this time. But he was doing it mostly self-taught, but he was looking at me for a lot of guidance and asking me questions. But he's been pretty much all on a solo venture as far as that's concerned. But it's funny whenever he's practicing in his room, my wife would tell me, that sounds like you playing. Like, I thought it was you playing. Like, he has
nice.
the same licks, the same little, because everybody has their own signature things that they do with a riff or with a solo or whatever. And he just, I don't know, he has my same style. And my youngest son, he also plays trumpet, started in band. And just recently, he just graduated last year from high school. And at some point last year, he started just by himself without telling anybody. He'd grab down one of my guitars and an acoustic and just start tinkering around, listening to things. He's got a really good ear for music. Years of playing in band will do that to you.
Yeah.
And so he can pick out melodies and play them on a guitar, even though he's never really played a guitar before. And so he's been doing that. And I didn't even know he was doing it for months. And then one day I came downstairs and he's playing my guitar. I was like, you're playing guitar? Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. I'm like, oh, wow, nice. Okay. And he's never, not until maybe like in the last couple of months, he's asked me a couple of questions like, hey, how do you play this chord? Or, does this sound better than this? But he's, I mean, just doing it, taking what he knows with trumpet and just translating it to guitar, which is amazing.
It's funny because I started out on guitar and I was strumming, but I was strumming with my first knuckles. They didn't catch this instead of the tips of my fingers. So I was ripping up my cuticles and I wouldn't practice. Yeah. And so my dad let me put that down. And then like a year or so later, I discovered Kiss, of course. And
that's the beginning of so many people's journey.
Oh, I know. Well, you know what? I actually, believe it or not, I still have a piece of Gene Simmons bass knowledge that I use frequently, which is my slides. Mm-hmm. My slides are patented Gene Simmons slides. Anyway, so I had to beg, borrow, and steal to. Right around this time, I also saw. Actually, I had seen Heaven on Their Minds. I had seen Jesus Christ Superstar when I was living in Bangkok as a kid, and then when I had seen it again, and the bass line on Heaven on Their Minds just locked in with me. I'm like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I had to beg, borrow, and steal for a year to try and get a bass. And finally they got me one, and that was the beginning. And one thing I will say that I learned generationally from my parents to me, and then me to my children, is that when you see that they're at a certain level of performance ability and their gear is hindering them, buck up and buy them the new gear. Just do it.
Yeah.
Not saying go buy anything. Do your research, find the best thing, but get your kid better gear because it literally will improve them.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to something that I really strongly believe is generationally from my parents to me parenting, is just the overall supporting your kids' passions and dreams, not just supporting them monetarily and, making sure that they're successful, but also just making sure that they're fulfilled. And, hey, your kid has a hobby. Great. As a parent, you need to dive in to that hobby and go on that journey with them. At least in so much as they will allow you to,
right?
Without impeding or pushing your way in, but be there at the very least, an engaged spectator and a cheerleader for your kid's passions. And if that means buying expensive ass gear for them, that means buying expensive ass gear. If that means taking a day off work and going somewhere to show up for them, that's what you got to do.
Yep. Anya was using a Fender copy for a lot of years, and I'm like, it's time. And I gave her one of my Warwicks. Mm-hmm. And she was like reticent to play it for the longest time. And I'm like, it's your bass. Play it. It's a real, the tonality is light years different than what you're currently playing.
I thank you very much for joining me on this journey.
Thank you.
And, absolutely the best to your career and your children's and your wife's.
Thank you. We are the Templetons of T-Town, baby.
There you go.
So you sort of have a similar sort of experience though, because you interact with your son in a similar way as he does, because you both have the like shows and like you help each other with those. Yeah. Like am I like reaching too far or
no? That's 100%. We started going to shows together, me and my oldest son Joey. We started going to shows together about a year and a half ago, and we just hit Real Art. We saw a couple shows, started branching out to other local venues, seeing more and more shows together. He started going shows on his own. I started volunteering at Real Art, and he started taking photographs. I started the podcast, and we really just, he's 21. So it's like, he lives with me and he's still my kid. But at the same time, it's like when we're out and about, it's like, we're contemporaries, Is
it like hard to make that differentiation, that switch?
At times it can be. Sometimes I have to remind myself like, wait, I'm not in charge of what he does with his life. He's an adult, he's grown, he can hang out and do, with who he wants and do what he wants. I'm just here to help him and to be his rock and his support if he needs me.
Right.
And to always be there to support him and let him know that I'm there to support him. And, as a two-way street, I kind of think he kind of sees me as hopefully is the same way that, yes, he's my dad, but also like I'm out here doing my thing. And if I need him, he's there.
Right. Sort of like advise, consult, guide, and then hopefully make sure they don't turn into a monster. but yeah. Just like the way that I kind of explain it to my kid and what like my role is for them. It's like it's like that in the movie Interstellar. There is this great line that's like, it's like when we become parents, our job is to become a memory for them, and like that, like memory is like that sort of north star, and like what like guides them and helps like inform their decisions. And and so like when I talk to them I'm just like, look, like my entire goal in life is to make it so you don't need me. And then from like there, the hope is like that we can just be friends and like laugh about the like decisions that we make and the experiences that we like have. But until then, it's just like, clean your goddamn room, take a bath,
right. All those things that hopefully become muscle memory by the time they're
right. And make sure your friends know that you love them.
Right. Yeah. How old is your kid?
9.
Okay, so you're still really, really deep in
it. I am deep in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are like a 9-year-old, they them, just like wrapped up in mayhem, and like it's every day is a new adventure. It's a new challenge, and like some days I handle it better than other days, but that's the.
Yeah, that's the learning curve. You don't always get it right, but hopefully you're doing it with enough love and compassion that even when you get it wrong, you tried and did your best, and hopefully your kid knows that you tried and did your best, and you can both learn from it.
Yeah. And that's the like thing, right? Like I feel like I have like not so much my parents, but like maybe their parents, it was like the parenting style was like really rooted in like get it right, kid, and like very much like a course correction if needed. The like belt would come out, and then it's like over time it's just like it's like, no, like you just want to let them know they're loved, and like make sure they feel loved and they feel supported in like their decisions, once again, as long as they're not being a monster.
Right.
And like as long as that's happening, then like, well, yeah, you're doing the best you can.
Yeah. So we didn't introduce you. You're Chaz.
Chaz, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Chaz. Chaz. I'm an old dad, living in Olympia, Washington, playing with the band Storm Boy, which is comprised of a couple dads, a wild uncle, and a completely out of control, we'll call her our niece.
Yeah. So you have an interesting, like, kind of multi-generational dynamic going on in your band. Yeah. How old are you? If you don't mind.
Do I have to? Yeah. No. So I'm 47.
Oh wow, okay.
And so we have a member in the 50s, we have a member in their 40s, a member in their 30s, and a member in their 20s.
You got one of each.
We got one of each. Maybe we should add like a keyboardist in their teens, and maybe like a senior citizen choir.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Scratching off the bingo card.
Right. Yeah. So that's a really interesting band dynamic right there. And I was I was talking a lot to Mitch from Liability, because he's in a band with his 15-year-old son, which is, I mean, that's an even further gap, and that's adding the parental child dynamic to it. But still, you're kind of dealing with the same kind of thing. Is there a generational gap, do you see, between all of you, or do you see eye to eye enough on things to be able to communicate artistically and business?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question. I think that it's a little bit of both, and like I think it's a healthy amount of both. Um, I think that I realized in the last band that I was in, where like I was the oldest person in that band, and it was like me and like a couple cats in their very young 30s. Um, we would have these conversations about music, and like I'll bring up the band My Chemical Romance as an example here, where like I was in life at that time was like when like My Chemical Romance hit, I like passed them off as like a mall band. And it's just like that's what people that shop at Hot Topic listen to. Like I'm just not even gonna bother with that.
Yeah, too old.
And then when that came up in a practice, they just kind of looked at me like, "Yeah, you need to rethink that, Grandpa, because like the way that we as in them, the way that we view My Chemical Romance is the same way that like our parents would view like Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin. It's that band that just kind of like changed everything, right?
Yeah.
And like created those like pivotal seminal records that like just like inspired a generation.
Yeah.
And so like when like I had that kind of aha moment with them, it opened up that sort of that like I hate to use this phrase because it's such a like buzzword phrase, but it opened up that sort of growth mindset thing that's just like it's like, well, like what else am I missing out on, because I just like write it off.
Yeah.
And like I think that like one of the things that makes me cringe most is when like I hear another elder punk like say something along the lines of who's like, oh, there's just no good music now, and like everything's awful. And it's just like, no, I think you're just lazy, because like there's so much great stuff out there, and like I think that like that's one of the things that Charlie, our aforementioned young wild guitarist, and Kuba, also our bassist, bring to the table is like they are like a little more keyed into some of the like newer things that and some of the bands that we like may have missed, and then like I would also throw in there like energy is such that like it keeps us like excited, and it keeps us like ready to keep doing as much as we possibly can to keep that mutual inspire engine going. And then I am also a really big fan of men of the idea of men of just, I have a stutter, so like occasionally it takes me a minute to spit a word out, but I promise I will get there, and it'll still make for good radio, because it's going to keep people on the edges of their seats.
Right, like what's he going to say?
No, I am like really into the idea of mentorship. I like grew up in the Washington DC scene.
Okay.
And like when I was 18, I moved into a punk house, living with the original drummer of Scream, who was at that time playing this great band called the Suspects, and like he was like 35, 36. And I lived with the guitarist for the band United Mutation, education, and like he was also in his late 30s at that time. And so like it was like I was kind of living with some of my heroes, and like who were constantly like giving me tips and like showing me like, it's like, well, when like you have a show, like what kind of flyers did you like make? And I was like, oh, well, I didn't really make any. I was just, gonna kind of call my friends and, get them to come out. And it's like, well, no, you still got to do all of this stuff. And by the way, on that flyer, why did you make your band's name so small? It's like, well, no, because we're supporting your bands. Like, no, all the bands. And it's just these like little tips, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's something that like I try to instill now on Charlie, and to like a lesser extent Cuba. It's like I now have a lifetime of like that.
Yeah.
And so if I can share what like I know with like them, just like being a dad, and like help like them, like this is not going to be their last band. Like I guarantee it. Like it might be mine, but like it's definitely not going to be theirs. And so like if like I can help them get to a point where like in their next band they are doing the same thing that I'm doing now, doing all the booking, doing a majority of the writing, and like a lot of the creative, or like at least understanding the process enough to be able to like help someone else like get the most out of them, then like that's me feeling like I'm doing my part as well as I can. And like I'm sure Jeremy would agree with that also.
I would.
I might have taken that on a tangent. I'm not sure if like it's way what I needed to share, but
yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, the mentorship definitely is something that I constantly think about. Both of my kids were in band in school, and they did from 5th grade all the way through senior year. Both played trumpet. They both did the regular pep band, the concert band. Both did jazz band. My oldest played guitar and trumpet.
You almost had a ska band.
I still could, technically.
You still could?
They have friends. So, and I've been involved in every single step of the process, from taking off work to go on a band field trip, or volunteering for the Daffodil Parade, consistently year after year, and to becoming eventually president of the band booster club and doing all that stuff, which it kind of, I took my self-appointed role as dad to kind of extending that to dad of anybody around me who's willing to listen,
That's awesome.
But like trying not to be like annoying at the same time, like giving them their space and letting them come to me if they need it. And now that my kids are done with school and done with all that, what I'm doing now and volunteering at Real Art and promoting young bands and going to shows and supporting them and giving them a platform on my show is kind of an extension of that. Like I feel like supporting them or giving them a platform really fulfills that like natural paternal instinct that I have to kind of support and protect and provide for, in an extension of a more non-official, kind of non-invasive way of just like, hey, I'm here if you want the support.
Are you like an older brother of like a few siblings, or like
no?
I'm what was your dad like?
Strict, but also I mean, very cool, very. It's hard for me to separate my relationship with him now versus my relationship when I was a kid, because right now me and my dad get along great. Yeah. He's like basically my only person in my family that I really connect with. But when I was a kid, it was like the exact opposite. Like we would butt heads all the time. and he was never home. I was a child of divorce, lived with my dad. My dad worked crazy hours, crazy shifts, was never home. And so I would come home from school, house is empty, and nothing to do but get in trouble, right? So, and this was in the 90s. I'm 45 now, so just right around the same as you. And at that time, there was no, at least around here, there was no all ages music venues. There was no.
Oh yeah, that's so awful.
Especially in the county, there's nothing for kids to do except just raise hell. And I did my fair share of that. But coming out of the other side of that, now I'm straight edge. I drink coffee religiously, but other than that, I'm that's it. And I feel like those experiences have kind of informed me, but also kind of jaded me at the same time. So like, I don't know. It's a weird thing when you think about your own childhood versus what you hope that your kids will remember about you, and the role that you play in your own kid's life versus the role that your own parents played in your life. Like, I know my dad loved me. He loved me with all his heart, but he was never given those tools or those communication ways to be able to say, I love you, I'm proud of you. It just wasn't in his vernacular. He didn't know how to say it.
Yeah.
Or express it in any way. And so of course, as a kid, you take that as he's just a strict old, codger. But, as you grow up, you understand the minutia of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of what you were saying there really resonated with me. Like it's wild to think how much freedom we had at that time, for better or worse, right?
Yeah,
right. Like growing up, it was amazing. It's like at 9 in the morning, okay, I'll be back when I'm hungry. And then you go and I don't know, poke a dead animal in a woods, or find
right.
some porn, or
yeah.
build a ramp out of bricks to jump on your bike and
probably hurt yourself really bad.
Hurt yourself really bad, and then get up and do it a few more times. And then you go back and you get a snack, and then you don't go home again until it's dark out, or someone hears their mom screaming at them or so.
Yeah.
But whereas now it's I purposely have a job where I work from home, so that I can walk my kid to school every morning, and I can walk them home every afternoon. And then in the summertime, it's oh no, we are going to be doing things together. And
100%.
And if we're not, you're going to go to a day camp, and you're going to be very supervised. It's I don't know if that's the right way or the wrong way, but I mean, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's just I just want them to feel loved, and I want them to feel they're supported. And it's I know growing up, my dad wasn't around it all. He lived elsewhere. I had a single mom, but and it's she was always telling me as often as she could, I love you. You can do whatever you can do. You just got to put your mind into it. But then she would be at work, and I would just be alone. And so trying to be there as much as possible. Now, it's uncharted waters in my life. And, but I hope it's paying off. I don't know if it is.
I'm sure it is. I think parenting, at least as us Gen Xers see our role as parents, is it's almost like an overcompensation for your own lived experience. Okay, my parents were never there, and I didn't have a lot of supervision and stuff, so I'm going to make sure that my kids have that in surplus, like very early on, as soon as I was able to, I got a day job that was Monday through Friday mornings so that I could be there in the evening, be there on weekends.
Yeah.
And even though it's been hard, it's been a struggle, my wife made the decision to be a stay-at-home mom, and I was, sole supporter. And, it sounds hokey and, whatever, but it's like that was what we decided to do because, we feel that at least one parent, doesn't matter who it is, at least one parent needs to be there with the kids in the morning, getting ready for school, and be there when they get home from school. And then, interaction throughout the day and on the weekends, like somebody, whether it's the mom or dad, needs to be there for them at all times, especially in those younger years. So that was that was kind of the roles that we assumed, and we're still doing that even though our kids are grown now, but and always doing stuff with them and planning weekend trips or planning vacations with the kids in mind. We never even had a date. We never even had a date until 10 years later. It was just because everything was always with the kids. And that's maybe going through 180 degrees from how I experienced childhood. And is that better? Is it not better? I don't really know, but I know that that's in my mind, or at least in my practice, that's what works. And all I could do is hope that, my kids see it the same way, and where maybe I have dropped the ball on a few things, or maybe could have done better in a few areas, at least I stuck to my principles and I saw that through.
Yeah. Only time will tell. Yeah. And it's like, I think the fact that you have such a healthy, positive relationship with them now is like telling there. His like, yeah, I mean, it didn't take long for like me to just be like I want nothing to do with my biological father. So like, when he died, like, it was like borderline cliche, like that, like trope, like, I never even got to like set everything right with him. But like at the same time, like I didn't care, and like to like be able to be there means so much more, it seems. And that's awesome.
Yeah. Just being there and, letting your kids know that you're there for them and you love them unconditionally and will support them with whatever they choose.
As long as they're not a monster.
As long as they're not a monster.
We have to keep reiterating that.
Because there are limits.
It's funny though, I will say I'm super jealous because like my kid like hates punk rock, hates my band, hates like except for Charlie, they love
Of course.
Charlie, but like if I invite them to like a show or something, I'm like, it's all ages. There's like gonna be some like kids like there. They're like, that sounds awful. It's too loud and it's gonna smell bad and the place is gonna be a dump. I'm just like,
yeah, but yeah.
Well, yeah, it's time together. We can get to do this thing together. Can I bring my Switch?
Sure.
No, you have to talk to people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very jealous of that.
Well, my youngest son hasn't really been into going out to see punk bands and stuff. He's come with me a few times, and he's just now he's in college now. And so he's seen a couple of shows up there at the campus, and he's getting to the point now where he's like, okay, this is kind of cool. Cause he's always listened to, ever since my kids were, in utero, it's been like, nonstop punk fest in the car, at home, always listening to punk, always listening to alternative, sometimes metal, just whatever it is. And so both of my kids have grown up with that, constantly being exposed to different types of loud, fast, aggressive music. And I think my youngest son, because my older son is so into it, that it's like the younger kid kind of has to do the opposite and be like, oh no, that's not my thing, that's your thing. But I think he's coming around to it now where he's like, no, this is actually pretty cool. And, when's the next show you going to? Can I come with? And so,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not totally his thing, but
Working out for you.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And it goes the other way too. Like, I've always been like a casual football fan. Like, if I'm not doing anything else on a Sunday, sure, I'll throw on the Seahawks game, whatever. And, but both my kids have just, in the last maybe 5 years or so, just lashed onto football, and they're like streaming geeks about it. And so it's like all season long, it's like every single game, doesn't matter who's playing, they're watching it. They're into the stats. They're into, watching the draft and everything. And so it's just gotten to this thing where now it's like me and my wife are like, well, okay, I guess we're a football family.
It's wild.
Yeah. It's totally wild.
Are they really into math, like in like other aspects of their lives?
Yeah, in ways. The younger kid, Jake, he's going to be majoring in engineering. So he's always been really, strong in math and academics in general. And I mean, the oldest boy, he's, scatterbrained like me, ADHD, and, but I mean, math is one of those things where it's like, you don't think that you like it and it, it sucks, but at the same time, it's like, you just kind of have a natural knack for figuring out certain things about it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's the language of the universe, right?
Yeah.
Like, I always had a thing. It's like I never understand these people that like are, saying like, oh man, I'm just bad at math. It's like, well, it's like you're not going to say like I'm bad at social studies or I'm bad at English, and it's like why, like math, like math is eternal, but then again, like I've never been that good at math, so that's me.
Well, yeah, it also depends on how your brain is wired too. Like, you could. When I was a kid, you throw me a sheet of math problems, and it's like, yeah, if I'm in the right mindset, I could fly through it. But if I'm not, I'm just gonna look at it and just my brain is gonna fry. But you could show me, like, you could show me guitar charts and scales and stuff, and that's all math, and like is like second nature to me. So it's just it just depends on how your brain is wired and what you're really able to focus on.
Yeah, it's just like a different it's a different dialect of the language of math,
for sure.
You mentioned another thing there, like your kids being like raised with like aggressive music around them, like punk in the car, or like alt or like metal or something. And like maybe that's the problem here on like my side, because like I just let mine run the radio, so it's either like so it's either like what are they really into now? Like it used to be like the like Disney playlist. Like as long as it was a song from like a movie that they liked, it's like, yes, I love that, and like occasionally it would work out, like any of the Lin-Manuel Miranda sound tracks are always fun, or like it when like they were into Gabba, like yes, like let's just listen to this all the like time, but they So here's a fun like thing, like so while like I have my stutter and like my speech issues, they were like born with a cleft lip and palate, and so like they didn't learn to like speak until like later, like after the surge or after like the first few surgeries, like we were kind of worried because they weren't making a lot of sounds and like but like that sort of led to them like being really passionate about podcasts and audiobooks and stuff.
Mhm.
So like we listen to a lot of like game theory and like girl tales and like all of these podcasts. So it's just like, so it's like my kid, like, I hate music, but play someone talking and I'll
Right.
listen for hours. Is like, okay, as long as we're spending time together, whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. My youngest kid started. He was never really into music that much. He was into playing music, like in the band, but he didn't really have, for a while, it seemed like he didn't really have like his own musical palette of stuff he liked to listen to until, I don't know, just one day all of a sudden he turns into a hip hop head. He's like, I'm all into, NBA Youngboy, and and then he starts going back and he's like, oh yeah, dude, 90s hip hop is so cool. I love Wu-Tang. And I'm like, okay, well, that's
because Wu-Tang is for the children.
Wu-Tang is for the children.
Wu-Tang.
Of course. And it's foundational, and that's in my wheelhouse too. But it's like, that didn't come from me. That he found that on his own.
Wow.
And then like the 90s R&B, which, my wife really is, knowledgeable and really, really into, but he found that on his own too. And like, once he started talking to us about it, then like a new bridge was formed where it's like, okay, now we have a new musical language we can talk to you in. And he is really interested in like making beats and stuff, and really just interested in how music is put together and how lyrics are put together and stuff. And so, and just the whole hip hop culture,
understanding bars.
And that, that's always been like tangentially, like kind of on my periphery, but I've never really been in it. But it's like he found that on his own, and now we kind of connect on that, where we never really connected on music before. So that's cool. That's an example of me learning from my kid.
Yeah, I love it. And like, luckily, like the hip hop community in the Northwest is like almost as deep and like supportive and like massive as like the punk community is. I wish there was a lot more overlap, because like I feel
there's definitely some.
Seems to have like a lot in common, but
yeah,
you were saying there is some.
There is some, not nearly as much as there should be, but I mean they both grew up together. I mean, in New York, punk and hip hop, they were birthed at the same time and have always been, right next to each other, sometimes integrating, sometimes not. So we should find that pathway.
We should find it. and like, I know that there are a few artists that like do like a really good like job of like trying to tie them together, like not so much in like a new metal way, but like like a lot of the like electronic elements like creeping brings in, or like or like a lot of the stuff that Aaron Gooby and the Zips do, and like
he's got a lot of electropunk and hip hop kind of blended together. There's also a lot of overlap in hardcore, where you get that tough guy braggadocio kind of emceeing frontman.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of that basically comes from the same place as hip hop. They're born side by side. So you get a lot of that overlap. I'm just unfortunate that a lot of people don't really see it, because I don't know how it was for you when I was a kid. It was like, especially in middle school, it's like you're a rap fan or you're a rock fan. Like there was a clear divide, and it wasn't until like Beastie Boys and Cypress Hill got really big that it was like, wait, no, you can like both. At least that's how it was out here. I know in the 80s it was different in places like New York and California and stuff, but at least out here there was a clear divide for a long time.
I think growing up in DC, like there was a lot more acceptance of like kind of playing both sides, and we were always trying to do a lot more of like bridging the like gap, and like it's like growing up in the town that spawned bad brains, the way that they
Absolutely.
merged punk and reggae, and like,
Mhm.
and then DC has like this very unique style of music that's called go. It's called Go Go. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's like kind of like a hip hop jazz punk hybrid that like is like built on a foundation of like heavy percussive elements, like imagine that like scene of like someone playing like a plastic buckets on the street.
Mhm.
It's like that's actually a big part of the go sound. And so like we would often like we would often like have like punk shows in the go clubs, and like try to like merge those like bands with the like punk bands. Sometimes it would work really well, sometimes it would be a little weird, but yeah, like I felt like at like that time it was like a little more accepted, and like I feel like also like as like we grow, we tend to just kind of like silo ourselves, and like go from like it's like well like it's like, oh man, I just love all the stuff, to like I just listen to alt country and drink craft beers. That's my identity now.
Right.
And then like, and we get so wrapped up in like that's our thing, that like we don't leave ourselves open to it. And like I think where like I'm getting back is like I didn't get that divide quite as much then, as much as I saw that divide present itself later.
Mm.
And then like I think now like a lot of the like kids are like much more diverse in their preferences, and it's like it's amazing to see, and like to be part of, and like watch them like build their own new thing out of like these like meshes.
All right. Yeah. Well, hey, Chaz, thank you so much for this conversation. This has been a lot of fun.
I forgot that we were doing a thing.
Yeah, I know. I'm all like, hey, you want to do an interview? And you're like, sure. And then I'm like, yeah, I don't have any questions. We're just going to riff.
And riffing we did.
We riffed.
Hi, everybody. I am Regan Lane. Is that enough?
What do you do? Who are you?
What do I do? I am actually the father to Thea Lane, who is the singer in the Rat Utopia experiment, and among other things. So, yeah. I mean, right now, the thing that I do the most is I try to be a good parent, and there's a backstory to all that shit, but so that's what I am right now. I'm a musician and all that stuff, and I did a lot of stuff in the 80s and 90s, and I still write, but my focus is on this group of kids, and the Ted Brown program led me 6 years ago to finding out that I'm actually really fucking good at working with kids, but maybe it's less that I'm good at it, that they're my people. And
Hmm.
so it makes it such a simple thing when you're hanging out with people that love the same thing you do. It kind of takes the age barrier out of it.
Yeah, that's so true. I was kind of talking to Chaz about that a bit because his band has he's in his 40s, another guy's in his 50s, the bass player's in his 30s, and then the guitar player is in her 20s. So they've
Uh-huh.
got like one of each.
Yeah,
And so it was really interesting to talk about that age dynamic and how it's really not that big of a deal when you're all focused and interested on the same thing.
yeah. No, absolutely. It's interesting too, being around kids. I don't know if you've ever read about Miles Davis and the story with him, but Miles, as he got older, he continued to work. When he was in his late 60s, he's working with kids, young men, young jazz guys in the 20s and 30s. And I always thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of weird, but you find that kind of juice is very the juice that younger people have, because they're not all caught up in like what might have happened or the negativity about it. They just do music because it's fucking cool and it makes them feel good and it
Yeah.
makes other people feel good. And I guess there's not a lot of baggage.
Hmm.
And being around that, I find super well. It's good for me on a number of levels, but it's inspiring. It's like it makes me want to still write. It's all those things you realize that um, time is undefeated, but it doesn't have to tear down the way you look and feel about music.
Yeah.
I know I have quite a few musician friends from the day, as we say, that were in original bands, and they've gone to and God bless them. And this is, everybody has a choice, but they go to that blues band graveyard that bands go to. And it's
Uh,
like, it's their choice, and it's cool if that makes you feel good. But I'm grateful that being around younger people tends to inspire me to continue to write and create. So, and I hope I give them whatever it is that I give them.
yeah, it's funny. Men of a certain age, as we are, we have more experience and experiences with music and in life in general, but that's not always a good thing when it comes to doing music or writing or
Sure.
communicating with others. Sometimes that extra experience is just extra baggage that you're carrying of you've done it this way so many times that you
Yeah.
don't know how to do it any other way.
No, absolutely. And the open-mindedness is key, but the things that I feel like I bring to well, for True, for example, is just like arrangement, things that I hear, like I hear this, do you hear this? I'll ask them. And but they're all good players and everything, and growing quickly, but I do more than anything just point things out, like, hey, do you hear this, or have you thought about this, because
Yeah.
that could work. And that's the other thing I'm super big on. There are no bad ideas, so you have to at least try it, because a lot of times people go, hey, let's do this, and a band will go, nah. And it's like, you don't know until you play it. And I've often told people, well, not often, I tell them all the time, I'm like a 50-50 guy. I'll do ideas, and half the time they're amazing, and half the time they're just absolute garbage. I'll go try this, and we'll do it, and I'll go, whoops, sorry guys.
Yeah, you're never going to hit a home run if you never swing the bat, right?
Yeah, 100% on that kind of stuff.
What is it like in the Live It Out Loud program? Tell me what you do there.
Okay, when Live It Out Loud started, Theo was super little, and a buddy of mine, Raymond Hayden, they needed a mentor. So 6 years ago, and they're like, hey, do you want to do it? And I was like, oh, it just sounded so horrifically weird. And I did it, and the band I ended up with was what ended up being the nucleus of Stargazy Pie.
Okay.
And we ended up doing it together for 3 years. They wanted me, and I said I told people I would come back if I could work with those kids, and so basically the same thing. There's a couple levels to Live It Out Loud for me. It's like, okay, we got the music part, learning arrangements, putting a show together, learning how to write a song, and that's also another thing to remind parents in those scenarios that not every kid is a songwriter, and not everybody, just because you're in the program doesn't mean that Johnny gets to write a song like Jack from Stargazy Pie, who writes
Right.
songs like they're coming, out of the sky all the time. And but the other thing is to learn about dealing with personalities and managing that, and respect between people. And that was one of my big things in doing Live It Out Loud. The music part, and honestly, that's the easy part. But the other part is how to treat people, like how do guys, young men, treat women in those scenarios? How do women stand up for themselves in those scenarios? And and the other thing is, if there's disagreements, one of the big things I have is, short of if it gets really disrespectful or crazy, then I would bring the parents in and talk. I haven't had to do that, but is what we do here stays here. Your parents aren't here, your friends aren't here. It's just us. And if you want to work it out, we'll sit down and all work it out, but we don't have to go talk about it to other people. And learn to keep things in-house, and to work out problems. And that's a big thing with musicians, is like not getting your way. And that's a perceived thing. I didn't get my idea. Well, maybe your idea wasn't that good. And then later kids find out, oh yeah, my idea wasn't that good. That idea was better, and that's why we chose it.
Yeah.
So so that's what it is. It's an 8-week program. They put the kids in groups based on their talent / experience. And so there's like-minded talent-wise kids in each group. And then they do a couple of shows. They do a bunch of seminars that Sky brings up. He brings in different people, do a songwriting seminar, a business seminar, stage etiquette, all kinds of stuff. And then it finishes with an interview. And then the last thing is a big show at McMiniman's, where they put this whole thing together. And I'm supposedly, the mentors only have to do it 1 day a week, which I find totally silly as shit. I mean, how can you do something like that and try to teach kids something in 1 day a week? So, as my wife often reminds me, I run myself ragged with that. But it's, what I mean? Come on, man. It's like 2 hours a day. If I put in an extra couple of days, that's 4 hours out of my week to help these kids get better. And getting better is a cool thing, but also a super cool thing is to see young musicians that may be doing this. You can usually tell, like, oh, they're going to do this. Start really feeling good about it and go, I had a drummer last year that he came up to me and his parents were talking. He's really talented soccer player too. And I told him, I said, dude, you could do this for a living. And his parents looked at him and they go, we told you. It's different when someone that's a musician that's like in this thing tells a young player, yeah, you could do this. Your parents, it's weird. I've even dealt with that with Thea, like, hey, you're pretty good. She's like, yeah. And then someone else says you're pretty good. And she's like, oh my God, did you hear that? I'm pretty good. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Kids tend to take you for granted what you say, because, they're thinking that you're going to tell them everything they do is good, which, I mean, you are, but
well, okay,
to a certain extent.
To some extent, but like my 28-year-old wanted to play guitar. She played acoustic guitar for 4 days. Her fingers hurt. She was like, hey, my fingers hurt. I don't want to do this anymore. Later, I found out she had a great voice, but I told her, I said, that's probably not your thing. She liked to write. She was like an English kid. I said, focus on that, dude. I said, just because I do music, it doesn't have to be your thing. And so I try, obviously you temper it and try to be fair and kind about it with anything. But with Fee, I mean, to be honest, I have to tell her, like, dude, I'm not lying. I said, I wouldn't tell you I thought you could do what you'd like to do career-wise unless you really could. That would be dumb. Yeah, go for it, honey. And she can't really do it. But she has some goals that are, to me, at that age, crazy. But, I one of the things that you learn about people is why not? Why not her? you know.
Yeah.
But it ends up the amount of work that people, that any one of us put into something, is usually what you get back from it.
So you have a 28-year-old, and
Yes,
you also
yes.
have a teenager. She's what, 16?
Yeah. She'll be 17, 08, 09, 08. So yeah.
Huge age gap. What's that like?
It's really not a big deal. The 28-year-old is actually super good with kids. She's a nanny. It's kind of her gig. And she was super excited. She's my daughter from another marriage. And she was super supportive when Mel and I wanted to have a baby. Mel wanted to have a baby. I went along with that, and well, and not in a bad way, but
Right.
I was almost 50. So that was kind of like an interesting thing, that my head played games with me until a guy asked me if I felt like I was almost 50, and I said no. And he goes, well, then have a kid. Don't be a baby about it. It's like, okay, fair
Sure.
enough.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been a big deal. There's been some spaces where Sophia and Maura have been like maybe disconnected a little, but now that age gap is like, Fia's a mature 16-year-old, and so now they text a lot. They talk about hair, whatever, art, whatever stuff they're into. And so it's been in the last year, especially. Oh, well, starting when we went to London in December, we all went together. And it was cool to see them connecting now more as grown-ups, I guess. I mean, I know
Yeah.
Fia's still a kid, but yeah. So it hasn't really been a big deal. There's just that space when Maura was 19, 20 and started doing her thing, but Fia was only, 10. She didn't
Yeah.
really care. It's just like, whatever, 10-year-olds. So,
Yeah. Well, shoot, mine are both young men now. Young men out of high school and out into the wild world, still living at home, but doing
that's
their own
cool.
thing.
That's a generational thing too, that I remember my mom would say about her parents, saying they couldn't wait for her to turn 18 to get out. And my parents actually said that. And
Yeah.
it didn't bother me then, but now, like, I look at Fia and I'm like, bro, you can stay here as long as you want. I mean, I want you to
Yeah.
have a good life and stuff, but you're not a burden whatsoever. So, and same thing with my oldest. Like, hey man, if you need to come back for a minute, I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's
Yeah.
different. It's kind of crazy that way. That
It
has
is. Yeah.
changed, I think, that dynamic.
It really has. I think it has a lot to do with just how different generations coming up have kind of dealt with the teenage rebellion, and then just how as you grow out of that and become a parent yourself, you look back on that, and parenting is like, it probably 75% reactionary to what you perceived your childhood as.
Sure.
And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, my kids can stay here. I mean, sure, I'd
Yeah.
like to have the house to just me and my wife, but I mean, as long as, if they need a place to stay, which, believe me, in this economy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
as long as they're not assholes, yeah, stay.
Yeah, and those things too about our parents. A lot of the things that happened in my house, there was my parents were alcoholics, and there was some violence. Men, my dad with my mom, not with the kids so much, a little with me, but when I got sober, when I was like 39, that's when I guess, how do I say this? Alcoholics Anonymous showed me that you're not connected to that story, that you get to now write your own story based on your sobriety and what you want to be as a parent, a friend, or a husband, and all that stuff. So that was a big deal. And so, like, one of the things generationally is, like, I'm one of the first men in 3 generations that didn't raise a hand to his wife. That's kind of crazy to say shit. I would never raise a hand to my kids, and people go, you didn't ever spank them? I said, dude, I'm a guy. I find that extremely just like unappealing to think about. Even if it's a 1-year-old, to have a man hitting a young kid is weird. So,
Yeah.
and all those things changed, based on basically what they did, and then I made that a positive in this kind of like how I decide to parent. And I just tried, and the other thing is I've tried to be super honest, and other people are like, you shouldn't talk about your past. And I go, that's just so fucking stupid. Past is what kind of makes me who I am. And if I hadn't went down the rabbit hole of dope and being an addict, I don't think I'd have an appreciation for life the way I do, and nor would I be who I am today. Because it took me that as a young man, I felt entitled, and I didn't know that at the time, but I thought that I deserved everything I got, and good Lord, in the way I didn't expect, I got my butt kicked by drugs. And so all of those things, then you get clean and you're like, oh my God, I have this second chance and I get to be who I want to be. I'm not, I was done with therapy for my daddy issues and all that shit. I don't know who my biological father is, all that just kind of weird stuff that I let hang on and create anger in me. And when I let it go, now I get just to be me. And I like being me, and I like loving my kids, and I like, being available to them in whatever way they need. And so, it's weird. Being a parent is one of those things. It's like if you had asked me 30 years ago when I was chasing stuff with Steve Foss and going down to Geffen Records and all the silly shit that I did, one day you're going to be a really good father, Regan. I'd be like, that's ridiculous, Right. But I'm grateful for it because the older I am, one of the cool things is to have a reason to be here, and the mentoring thing is one thing, but also being a parent and being available to kids and the friends in the circle of people, because one of the nicest compliments that I've ever gotten was from Dorian, Maddox's significant other, that this is one of the safest places that they feel safe. And that's a super big compliment to me, and just who we are as a family and as people. And I like being that. I like whatever that is. I like being that. So
absolutely. And going back to having a purpose as a early 20s, I had my first kid when I was 24. So a small gap there, between when I was a teenager and when I was all of a sudden a father. Yeah, I had no purpose during that 6-8 year span of time, whatever. I had zero purpose, zero drive. I mean, eventually I got a band together and I thought that was going to be the end all everything. And, it just wasn't. But having kids has, provided me with a purpose, because then, it didn't fully like sink in the weight of it and the importance of it. Really, at first, it was a lot of just kind of winging it and trying to figure out what the hell to do, But eventually I came to a place mentally where I decided that, or I discovered that this is my purpose. Whether I do anything else of quote unquote importance in my life, I'm raising kids, and it's, my absolute number one responsibility to make sure that they are not assholes, make sure they are good humans, I feel like I've definitely done the best I could. I think I did okay. And, along the way, started getting really active in their school. Like as soon as they started going on field trips, I was just like, well, they're going to go out someplace else outside of school with their teacher and a couple of random parents. I want to be one of those random parents, because I want to be there for my kid to make sure that, everything's cool. And then it snowballed into, all of a sudden I'm doing every single field trip every year. And, they get in band. All of a sudden I'm doing every single concert, every single, trip to CWU for a jazz festival or whatever. And, then I got teachers that aren't even teachers that my kids aren't even part of their class asking me, "Hey, we need a volunteer. Do you want to come?" I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, but uh, and then working kind of not exactly, but similar to what you do with Live It Out Loud, I was doing with the high school band, where I was the president of the booster club, and I was volunteering for every single thing that anything that required an extra set of hands or an extra set of eyes. I was there, and it was a lot of damn work, I'll tell you what. But it was really rewarding, not just for my own kids. I mean, I would basically just let them this is their world, and I'm just here to support them.
Nice.
Them knowing that I was there, I think, goes a long way, and it also went a long way for the other kids who maybe their parents weren't there, or maybe their parents were there, but they see, hey, this is a guy who's there. Just try to lead by a good example, not just for my own kids, but for everybody else's kids. And now that I'm done with that, I'm kind of, I don't know, just kind of wandered into this next iteration of what that is, and helping young musicians and young bands have a platform, and
young artists too, like the guys that do photo. Well, I know your son does photos, but also the interviews and all of those people, supporting that and letting them know, yeah, dude, you're on the right path. What you're doing matters, because it does. But as for that thing about being there, it's funny. One of the things I've told my kids since they were little, I said, always remember I'm there even when I'm not. And it's like, because and that's probably based on that my parents didn't know what I was doing, and as a kid, but I always want them to know that they're always there. They're in my mind. If I can't be somewhere, that doesn't mean I'm not there. It's like, and because I'm an older parent, just to be honest, it's like I'll be gone at some point, and the things that we have had together as a family and with my daughters, I want those things to remain, like to be like, hey, yeah, do you remember when, or what dad said, or shit like that, because I think that stuff's powerful. My grandmother did that for me. I lived with her from the time I was like 3 until first grade, because my mom couldn't take care of me. And she said so many crazy, weird things that when I was little, you kind of go, oh, okay, Grandma. and then later it was like, wow, man, she was really giving me some guidance that I didn't know I needed. And then later I remember some of her little stories and all the things, just crazy stuff, man. Like the prayers that we said at night, to remember to think about the people in your family and the people that you care about. And it's funny. It's like, it's not even a God thing. It's just like a thing about, just make sure that you think about, when you go to bed at night, about the people that are in your life that matter, and to think and wish the best for them. I thought, wow, what a good lesson. Because it was just crazy. But it was later I looked back on that stuff. But when you're little, it's more like, hey, Grandma, can we have ice cream after we say our prayers?
Right.
Honestly, that's really what it is.
Just the always being there, or always putting your kids first, it's just it's a mindset, and it takes a while for that to really kind of sink in, or at least to reflect and look back on it like, wow, that really is everything. It's just always kids first.
Well, and the thing too is, honestly, is that kind of attitude of putting others before yourself. And for me, that can be, the struggling alcoholic, or helping my mom who's 86 or whatever, and not even giving it a thought. That's kind of a learned behavior that at a certain point you go, oh. And to be honest, just what mine was like, oh, it's not all about me. And it was funny to say that, and I'll even joke now, don't you realize it's all about me? But I know in all sincerity it's not, but that's not something, our kids are young. Come on, man. 20 to 40 is selfish time. It's me time. and you want them to learn that, or have an understanding of what giving back means, or being helpful. But that's something that honestly can only be learned by the journey.
Yeah.
You can't shove that down somebody's throat. It's just like, yeah, I can joke with my kids, hey, it's not all about you, but at a young age, I mean, especially, I remember it was super me, man. Me
Hmm.
first. I mean, just being honest, that's how that works. But
Yeah.
like you said, when you get to a certain point with your kids, you're like, oh, I'm thinking about them more than myself. That's a crazy kind of moment, I think, in people's lives. To
Yeah.
like I said, just simply put, it was like, oh shit, it's not all about me. Wow, that's kind of a surprise. You know.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's incremental too, where like, obviously it's the time aspect, what you're spending your time doing. And then, eventually it's your daily routines, your habits, whatever. My latest biggest revelation, I think, as far as like that shedding that selfish nature was quitting drinking. And it
Oh
was just because that any kind of substance use, whether it's recreational, borderline abuse, or genuine abuse, it's selfish behavior.
yeah,
To finally be able to look at that objectively and just say, no, that's not what I want anymore. I don't want that to define me, because it will. Because
yeah,
that's people who know you for your actions, and your kids see you as an example. And
sure,
so shedding that and just getting rid of that it was like an ultimate power flex. It was like, yes. So now, I could say with a clean conscience that you don't have to do those things, to be accepted by your peers or whatever. And, I
oh,
could say that you don't have to do it. Not like do as I say, not as I do, but actually, no, I'm showing you.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. I told my kid that when I was in crack houses, toward the end, I would have people looking at me going, Regan, what the fuck are you doing here? And I was just like, you have all this talent, you're wasting it. And it was always like, no, man, I'm fine. I'm doing my thing, or whatever
Hmm.
nonsense. But I like hearing the fact that I didn't know that you quit drinking. So congrats on that, because
Thank you.
one of the things being chemical free is you get to truly be who you're supposed to be. And it takes any of that other kind of the water gets clear. It's not muddy anymore. And that's how I felt when I got off of heroin, and just when I cleaned it out. And that's another reason why, even though it's legal, I don't smoke weed, because
Yeah.
for me, like that kind of stuff, smoking weed leads to taking a Vicodin, leads to, oh, good Lord. It's just
Yeah.
like, next thing I know, I'm robbing your house, and that's real stuff.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that trade-off of, maybe, I guess, because the reality is like, for some of us, doing alcohol and drugs was a way to not be ourselves, and then you're more comfortable in social situations and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And once you learn to deal with that uncomfortableness, and then realize that everybody's a little uncomfortable anyway, and nobody,
Yeah.
even the people that fake it good, are probably hating it at certain points of dealing with whatever it is we all deal with. That that's such a big thing to me, because that's one thing I tell people, especially in AA. A new guy is like, hey man, if you do this, if you get rid of this one thing, you get to be the real you. And I said, and I don't know who that is. I said, but you'll have an opportunity to be like, my sponsor told me, he goes, dude, all I would like to see you do is do what you say you're going to do. And he goes, and
Hmm.
if you can do that, people will trust you. And when people start to trust you, they'll count on you. And then you'll start to realize that you can count on yourself to make good decisions too. It's crazy how it works.
Yeah.
Once your head's clear and you're not tied in or tethered, however you want to look at it, to any kind of chemical or drug. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
congrats, dude. That's super amazing. I love hearing
Thank
that.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's a big,
Um,
big deal.
it is. I mean, I was never like really, really bad, but it was recreational, becoming habit forming, becoming just like a part of just daily life. And, just got to the point where it's like, this isn't cool. This isn't fun. This isn't what I want to show my kids. This isn't how I want to live.
Yeah, it's funny. It was bad enough that you are willing to tell people, I no longer do this,
Yeah.
and say it out loud. Because I'll be honest, people that are normal, like my sister can have a glass of wine, she has her whole life, and be
Hmm.
like, oh, my nose is numb. And she's never been an alcoholic. So she's never brought it up to me about quitting having that glass of wine at Thanksgiving or whatever. But I
Yeah.
think that people that are willing to walk through the fear, because it becomes a decision when you say stuff like that, like, I'm not doing this anymore. Well, at least today, that means that what it was doing or how it was feeling, you were like, this is impacting me, whether everyone else knows or not.
Yeah.
It's an AA thing, man. The only person that can tell you that you're an alcoholic is you.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool thing for me to find out. I was like, because I knew for a long time, but I was always like, my first meeting was in '85. The band I was in made me go to it, and they were doing drugs with me. They're like, dude, you're so horrible. You got to go to AA. And I got to an AA meeting, and this poor woman or girl, whatever, she wanted to kill herself. And she's like super down in the dumps. And my first thought was, well, I'm not that bad. And so I just left. It's like,
Right.
oh, I'm not that bad. I'm fine. You know, and but deep inside, man, I think people that stop like you did or I did or other people, it's because you really know you're like, nah, this is kind of hampering things. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
100%.
really cool. That's just yeah. Anyway, I get all excited about it. AA saved my life, so
Yeah,
real shit. So
for sure.
yeah,
When I was a teenager, there wasn't a lot to do like as a teenager other than get in trouble.
yeah,
Living in the county, there was no all ages music clubs. There was no rec centers anywhere near. I couldn't even catch a bus because it was too far of a walk.
yeah,
And I mean, there's nothing to do but to get in trouble. And so you grow up like that, and but thankfully there's so many more opportunities now for kids to have things to do besides smoking or drinking. Like I always say, my dad is a good dad. He always has been, but he was
sure,
never there. He was never there. He worked. He
yeah,
made a decision to maximize his earnings at the cost of all else.
yeah,
So he would work graveyard shifts. He would work 10, 12-hour shifts. And, and then sometimes he'd go to the bar or go bowling or whatever after work. So I never see him home
yeah,
alone all the time. Um, so that was like my number one thing going into having kids was I'm going to be here. I'm going to
yeah,
be home as much as I can. So as soon as I was able to, I got a day job Monday through Friday, and that's it. I'm home. I think that goes a long way to kind of preventing most kids from reaching the point where they're going to start to go down a spiral of,
sure,
bad decisions. That and the just, showing your kids that you love them, telling them that you love them, being there all the time.
yeah. Well, and for me, like because of all the violence and stuff, and it was always crazy. We were running over to my aunt and uncles or my grandmothers and all that, running out of the house and just crazy nonsense. So I guess the thing that my wife is also in recovery, the thing that we had decided was we wanted to give our kids stability that we never had.
Yeah.
And so hence the house that we live in was going to be right. We bought it right before Sophia was born, and it was going to be the fixer upper. And then when she's 5, we're like, hey, we're thinking about moving. And she went ballistic. I love this house and everything. And I was just looked, I said, dude, what does it matter? Let's just stay here. And we ended up fixing up the house, and now we've paid it off. And but the point is, it's stable. She has.
Yeah.
I moved 6 times by the time I was in 7th grade, and my wife moved way more than that, like from like crazy amounts of times, because her stepfather was in the military. So that kind of and I don't know, it's nobody's fault. People are who they are, but left to my own devices as a young person, and my wife would also attest to this, you just end up, it's real easy to run with the wrong people. It just is. And if nobody's telling you, hey, that might not be the best thing for you, I don't know. I just wanted to give both of them stability. That's a huge thing, I think. Yeah, and in the end, it's funny. There's a different part of this too, that all of these things that I'm hopeful for my children, at a certain point, it's out of my control because I can't control people, places, or things. So I can control how I act or react to this stuff. And I could tell you that 100% I think I've done a decent job at being a parent. But when they walk out the door, or their lives start when have their house and their significant others and all that stuff, how they treat people, I hope I gave them a foundation of what I think, how you should do it. But in the end, man, that's their call. That's their deal,
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. It's the foundation. That's really all you can do, and that's what you just need to focus on, because that's the only thing that you can control as much as you can control anything. That is what you have.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, all right, brother. Well, we're running this clock up pretty long, so I think we'll go ahead and end this.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you for asking me to do this. I know I get all chatty, so
that's exactly what I need. Is chatty people. I prefer chatty people on the show.
This has been a Jiggle Down Productions production.